Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Archana Solanki and here are the headlines this hour. Stock markets end range-bound session with marginal losses. Bank stocks buck the trend. The rupee continues to gain ground against the dollar after depreciating 10% in 2022. The world is perilously close to a recession, says the World Bank, hands a sharp cut to its global growth forecast in 2023. From 3% earlier to 1.7%, expects India's GDP growth to slow to 6.9% in FY23 and projects a 6.6% growth rate for FY24. Oil prices fall amidst an unexpected build-up in the U.S. inventories. Public sector oil marketing companies hope for a 50,000 crore cash compensation from government in FY23 on fuel price freeze. That's an exclusive. Electric vehicles hog the limelight as the Auto Expo returns after 3 years. Maruti Suzuki unveils its electric SUV concept set to hit the market in 2025. Tata Motors to launch a slew of electric vehicles. Hyundai and Kia also show off their EVs. 75 models set to be showcased by 48 automakers in attendance. NRIs without an Indian mobile number may soon be able to use UPI for transactions as well. The MPCI asked companies to ensure the system is ready by April. The facility will initially be rolled out for NRIs in 10 countries, including the US, UK, Saudi Arabia, UAE and Australia. The Supreme Court agrees to hear Google's plea against the competition regulator's 1,337 crore rupee penalty order after NCLAT refused an interim stay. The regulator had fined Google for abusing its dominant market position in the Android phone market. The company Law Appellate Tribunal also turned down another petition by Google challenging a separate CCI order. Relief for Johnson & Johnson. The Bombay High Court quashes Maharashtra drug regulator's order suspending the company's license to manufacture baby powder. The High Court calls the state action arbitrary and unreasonable. Angry protesters halt the demolition of 2 hotels marked unsafe in Uttarakhand's Joshimath. Chief Minister promises 1.5 lakh rupees as aid to affected families who are being moved to safer locations. Footwear makers bat for lower duties on raw materials, production-linked incentives, interest subvention, among others. This upcoming budget, CNBC-TV18 gets you the industry wish list from the country's footwear manufacturing hub, Agra. And big honor for RRR at the Golden Globe Awards. Music director M.M. Kareem emerges victorious in the Best Original Song category ahead of Lady Gaga, Taylor Swift and Rihanna. The film, however, lost out to Argentina in 1985 in the non-English film category. All right, let's start with the action from the last street. A range-bound session saw the market end flat with a slight negative bias. Mid-caps underperformed the benchmarks to close 0.25% lower. However, banks were the star performers, with that index soaring 0.5%. Metals led from the front, while pharma dragged. Prashant Nair is here with a wrap of all the trading action. Prashant, over to you.
It was a small change in terms of close on the index, the Nifty, that is 20-30 points lower. There was a fair bit of volatility, but it was early on in the session and within the first 2 hours of trade. And after that, the market just kind of stalled, did nothing, and ended in exactly that fashion by 3:30 as well. Banks, which had been underperforming for the last couple of days, outperformed today. Let's see if this is just a one-day phenomenon or there is more. Bharti was the big loser in the Nifty, and that kind of weighed. The stock was down about 4% by close. Cipla, Divi's Laboratories were some of the others which actually lost. Metals as a pack did well. So Hindalco, there was BPCL, Sun Pharma. These are some of the names which actually did well. In the broader markets, advance decline was broadly 1:1. Actually, by close, it was more advances as compared to declines by about 150 odd stocks. So having said that, let me start with what did well in the broader space, and it was a long list. Tata Communication, names like NMDC, PTC, Marksons Pharma, Tata Investment Corporation, Greaves Cotton. We had that management of Greaves Cotton out of the Auto Expo earlier today. Sterling Tools, Nazara, RateGain were some of the others which did quite well. Broader market losses coming through in Varun Beverages, and lots of well-traded large liquid names trading down on volumes today. Adani Transmission, SRF, Sona Comstar, MRF, Laurus Laboratories were a few which I think deserves some mention. What next? I think in terms of just level watching, 17,774 is the weekly swing low, which was made on the 26th of December. The Nifty today came within 50 points of it and then bounced. I think it's absolutely important that that level holds in the face of any selling in the coming days. And in terms of global cues, I think any real action will only pick up. But that is only tomorrow. So I think it'll be Friday morning to get a sense of how global markets react and what our markets will do as well. Back to you.
All right. Thank you, Prashant, for that. Moving on to the currency market, the rupee continues to gain ground against the dollar. This after depreciating by 10% against the greenback in 2022. The dollar has been weakening since the start of 2023, and that is helping emerging market currencies across the world, including the Indian rupee. The World Bank has warned of a global recession and cut the GDP growth outlook for India. The World Bank expects India's economy to grow at 6.9% in FY23. It has projected a growth rate of 6.6% for FY24. The bank expects global growth to slow down sharply to 1.7% in 2023 from its earlier projection of 3%. This will be the third weakest annual pace of growth for the world economy in 3 decades. The World Bank also warned that the globe is perilously close to a recession. Meanwhile, oil prices remain broadly steady, with Brent and NYMEX seeing mild gains. Unexpected built in crude and fuel inventories. Global economic uncertainty and China reopening its economy left prices going in and out of negative territory. India's state-run oil marketing companies, meanwhile, are eyeing a 50,000 crore rupee compensation from the government to bridge the losses they are incurring over the sale of petrol and diesel. Sapna Das is here with more exclusive details. Sapna, over to you.
Well, industry players have estimated a cash compensation requirement of 50,000 crores from the government, as an immediate measure to help them make up for the losses that they've incurred on petrol and diesel in H1, Q3 also probably, and of course Q4 is ongoing. But 50,000 crores is their rough estimate in terms of the losses that they've incurred in terms of marketing of these products. That's one. The second viewpoint that's coming from OMCs very clearly is the fact that they just only can't manage to keep their head above the water and just be in a survival mode forever. Either the compensation should come through in terms of fiscal support from the government, cash fiscal support from the government, or they should be allowed to raise prices. For example, 2 to 3 rupees, price raise on diesel will help them go a long way. So these are the two demands, key takeaways from our conversations with OMCs at various points in time. This has been an important issue. It has been doing the rounds for quite some time. The government has compensated OMCs to around 22,000 crores for the LPG losses. Will they be willing to do the same for petrol and diesel losses also? That's a bit of a question mark. The matter is not closed yet, and we just have to give a watch as to how much of this money actually comes through from the government coffers.
All right, thank you, Sapna, for those details. Moving on, non-resident Indians will now be able to use UPI to make payments with international mobile number. National Payments Corporation of India has asked players in the UPI ecosystem to ensure the system's readiness by April end to get this going. Ritu Singh joins us to explain how this will work. Ritu, what is the latest that you can share with us?
That's right. Non-resident Indians which have bank accounts in India no longer really need to have a local Indian mobile number to be able to transact using the UPI. And this is because NPCI, which is the governing body for the Unified Payments Interface in India, has allowed NRIs to make UPI payments using their international mobile numbers from their NRE or NRO accounts, which are the two major categories of accounts which are available for NRIs currently. NRE is the non-residential external account where NRIs can park their foreign currency earnings, and NRO, which is a non-resident ordinary account where they can manage their income earned in India. Now, to begin with, NPCI is going to enable these transactions for NRIs in 10 countries, and that includes Singapore, Australia, Canada, Hong Kong, Oman, Qatar, the United States, Saudi Arabia, UAE and the United Kingdom. But subsequently, it plans to extend the facility to more countries in the near future. Now, NPCI has asked players in the UPI ecosystem, which is primarily banks, to onboard customers from these countries and ensure that these accounts are compliant with FEMA and other RBI regulations and have necessary anti-money laundering checks, etc. in place by the 30th of April this year. Now, UPI, as we know, has been one of India's biggest success success stories in the field of payments, and it is slowly expanding beyond the Indian shores. It recently announced that Indian travelers visiting Europe could transact using the UPI. It is also exploring partnerships to cover more countries by and by. And with this latest move, NPCI gets a further push in the global market.
All right, thank you, Ritu, for those updates. Moving on, the Supreme Court has agreed to hear Google's plea against the Competition Commission's order to fine the tech giant over 1,330 crore rupees. This comes after the NCLAT refused an interim stay on CCI's order. Remember, the regulator has fined Google for abusing its dominant position in the Android phone market. Abhimanyu Sharma joins us with the latest. Abhimanyu, what are you picking up?
The Supreme Court has agreed to hear Google's petition against an imposition of penalty by the CCI for alleged abuse of its dominant position in the market. CCI had earlier imposed a fine on Google of rupees 1,337 crores for abusing its dominant position in the market. The top court will hear Google's appeal on the 16th of January. Earlier, NCLAT had refused to grant any interim stay and had directed Google to pay 10% of the penalty amount. NCLAT had observed that Google may be hurting other payment aggregators by insisting on payment only through its own system in the App Store. On the other hand, Google had stated that merely it is in a dominant position in the market is not a reason big enough to impose a fine on the company. It remains to be seen whether any interim relief will be granted to Google in this case or not, since Google has sought an urgent hearing stating that the CCI order is going to come into effect on the 19th of January.
All right, moving on, relief for Johnson & Johnson. The Bombay High Court has quashed the Maharashtra FDA's order which had suspended the company's license to manufacture baby powder at its facility in Mumbai's Mulund. It has allowed Johnson & Johnson to manufacture and sell baby powder in these facilities. Now remember, the Maharashtra Food and Drug Administration had cancelled J&J's license in September last year, saying that it may affect the skin of newborn babies due to the alleged high pH levels. Today, the Bombay High Court quashed FDA's order after noting that of the 11 to 12 samples tested by the FDA, only 2 were non-compliant with the quality standards. The court also questioned the delay by the FDA as the samples were taken in 2018, tested in 2019, and the license was scrapped in 2022. The bench said the delay was unacceptable and arbitrary. The judges also called FDA's action of cancelling the license extreme. I'm quoting from the order. It is not a reasonable proposition that the moment one sample from the batch is not of standard quality, then license is cancelled. We believe that this kind of approach will result in considerable amount of commercial chaos and wastefulness. An administrator cannot use a hammer to kill an ant, unquote. The court also asked the company to ensure all its official distributors recall products from the tested batch that did not meet the regulatory standards so that it does not reach the market. Moving on, Prime Minister Modi flags off the Madhya Pradesh Global Investors Summit, says India has been on path of reform, transform and perform since 2014. Wooing investors to the state, the Prime Minister said, and I quote, MP ajab bhi hai, gazab bhi hai aur sajag bhi hai.
Today, India is receiving record-breaking FDI. The Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan has imparted greater momentum to it. As a result, India has become an attractive destination for investment.
And from the industry point of view, we see this decade and probably coming decades will see enormous growth opportunity for India. In India, we see the trends of both consumption-led growth supported by infrastructure-led growth.
आज दुनिया भर की इकोनॉमी जब एक चुनौती भरे मोड़ पर है, भारत की अर्थव्यवस्था में एक नई बढ़त, एक नई लहक हमें दिख रही है। भारत की तरक्की नई ऊंचाइयों पर पहुंच रही है। जब दुनिया की हर बड़ी इकोनॉमी का हाल एक कदम आगे 2 कदम पीछे जैसा है, तब हमारा देश एक नई ऊर्जा, एक नए गति के दमक रहा है।
Welcome back. A visual delight for all the auto enthusiasts. The annual Auto Expo that had curtains down for almost 3 years due to the pandemic is now back with the same fervor. The theme this year is sustainable mobility. Big players like Maruti Suzuki, Hyundai, MG Motor, Ashok Leyland and EV players unveiled a range of new offerings. Parikshit Luthra and Danish Anand get us all the action from the Auto Expo 2023.
Yes, we're at Auto Expo 2023. Yes, the Indian Motor Show is back after a gap of 3 years. And the showstopper, the headline this morning is the Suzuki EVX. Now, this electric vehicle has been developed ground up by Suzuki Motor Company. And what you're seeing in front of me will be the first electric vehicle to be launched by Maruti Suzuki in India by 2025.
The general consensus in the industry is that within four-wheeler, you will see a faster adoption in larger cars.
MG Motor is a company which has been eyeing a big share of India's SUV market and the car market as well. They have showcased and unveiled around 14 vehicles at the Auto Expo 2023. Behind me is the new MG Hector, a vehicle that you are very familiar with on Indian roads. It was launched in 2019 and now a facelift version has been launched. So this one gets a Argyle-inspired diamond mesh grille, an impressive stance altogether.
We have given a very significant facelift, I would say, by changing the exterior, interior, the screen, and also more functionality in the iSmart system, the connected car features. We are expecting more than 10-15,000 bookings this month on that car.
7 alternate fuel technologies showcased by Ashok Leyland at the Auto Expo. If I can ask my camera person to begin from there, that is the CNG vehicle which has been showcased. You have an LNG truck, you've got a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle and more CNG trucks which have been showcased and electric vehicle trucks as well. Mr. Agarwal, give us a sense of what does this say about the roadmap for Ashok Leyland over the next 5 years?
See, the roadmap is very, very clear because the future is going to be different and therefore we want to be prepared for the future. And that is our play at the Auto Expo as well. We have nothing from diesel or old fuel here. Everything is future.
Reeves, as you know, back in 2016 was one of the early movers into sustainable mobility because we believed when you look at oil prices, when you look at long-term sustainability, electric vehicles are the way to go.
All right, let's shift our focus to the big national story that we continue to track. More than 700 houses in Uttarakhand's Joshimath have developed cracks due to land subsidence. As the evacuation continues, the Uttarakhand government has announced an interim relief of 1.5 lakh rupees each for affected families who have been moved to safer locations. The state administration has said that initially 200 unsafe houses and hotels will be demolished. 2 hotels were marked for demolition on Tuesday, but authorities couldn't dismantle them as hotel owners and locals staged protest. The protesters were demanding fair compensation from the government. Hotel Malari Inn was among the 2 hotels that were to be broken down. Santhya Gora brings us this report.
This is Hotel Malari Inn of Joshimath. And this was the first building which was earmarked for safe demolition according to the local administration. The process which started yesterday, electricity lines were cut. The people which you can see who are sitting outside the hotel, they are hotel owners and their relatives, and they are staging a protest.
कल जब पता चला कि ये लोग अपनी मर्जी से हमको कोई सूचना नहीं कुछ नहीं अपने आप उन्होंने पता नहीं कितने बुला दिया फोर्स पुलिस फोर्स जब हमको पता चला ये तुम्हारा होटल टूटने हम दौड़ के सुबह 6 बजे आ गए यहाँ तब से हम यहीं बैठे के बस हम कह रहे कि हमारा वो जितना नुकसान हो रखा उसकी भरपाई करो हमको बद्रीनाथ के तर्ज पे विस्थापित कर दो बस हमको यहाँ से जाने का आगे दो हम नहीं रहते दे यहाँ।
तो आपके तहसीलदार साहब से लेकर के आपके मुख्यमंत्री तो कह रहे हैं कि हमने सबको अच्छे से पुनर्स्थापित कर दिया है, सबको सेफली पहुंचा दिया हर जगह पे।
एक ही कमरा दे रखा उन्होंने, वहीं पे रह रखे। कहाँ इतना बड़ा होटल, कहाँ मतलब एक उसमें, और फिर ऐसे हालत में वो हमको मतलब कह रहे भागो, तो कैसे भागेंगे यहाँ से।
These people, they had spent their entire night here outside in this biting cold. Their only demand is that government should take care of their rehabilitation. They should give them compensation for their properties. This is a hotel, and as the owner said that their house also is there in the basement. So for them, everything is at stake. Local administration says that they have done everything in order to rehabilitate them. CM of the state, in fact, MOS Defense also assured that the government will ensure that everyone in Joshimath is safe and no one suffers. But these are the people of Joshimath, and this is a very different tale here.
All right, the government is considering a 2,600 crore rupee production-linked incentive scheme to encourage footwear manufacturing in the country. The sector, which lost 30% of sales volumes due to the pandemic, is now showing growth over pre-COVID levels. But can the Indian footwear industry rise in the face of global competition, especially China, which has an 85% share in the global footwear market? My colleague Abhimanyu Sharma travelled to Agra, which is the biggest hub for footwear manufacturing in India, with a turnover of at least 20,000 crores to find out about the sector's budget wish list.
If you recently bought shoes from Steve Madden, Dunes, Zara or Mango, it is quite possible that your footwear was manufactured in the city of Agra. Identified worldwide by the iconic Taj Mahal, Agra is also known for its vibrant footwear industry. Footwear from this city is a desired commodity not just across India, but is also exported to over a dozen advanced nations. However, the leather industry in Agra is grappling with its own set of issues and is seeking several policy interventions to augment its export potential. The city has a flourishing footwear industry which supports at least 40% of the city's population and employs 400,000 people directly. There are at least 50 large units, 150 MSMEs and 5,000 micro units. The domestic turnover is approximately rupees 20,000 crores and exports are worth rupees 4,000 crores. But India's footwear exports are minuscule compared to China's 85% share in the global footwear industry, and that's why businessmen here in Agra are hoping for incentives and concessions in the upcoming budget.
All the import substitutes to be produced in India, the PLI is really important. The capital cost in India is the key. When you really want to scale up, we can't grow at 8 to 10% of the interest rate. We don't need any cash subsidies, but interest subvention for minimum for the next 5 years. Minimum 5% interest subvention. Raw material should be on the either on the zero duty or the max on the 10% duty. 10% of the those taxes should be invested in our social security.
Industrialists here say that a reduction in GST is necessary to drive sales of made-in-India footwear against Chinese imports.
Would recommend that the government brings down the GST on footwear from 18% to 5% so that we get a level playing field and we don't allow the Chinese imports into India. If we have the funds, we can really face the competition. If funds are expensive, then it becomes difficult. China today has 86% of the world market of shoes, and we are about around 3%. If we get even 10% from China, it will be a huge jump.
Agra's footwear industry hopes the budget would reduce duties on imported raw materials and provide for higher rates for remission of duties.
A concessional import of raw material, machinery, and also technology so that India can make world-class product. We need to rationalize and standardize a lot of government procedures so that there's ease of business for all exporters. Footwear should attract higher road tab. There's a flaw in classification, which in turn results in loss of road tab. It usually attracts 1.3, but we sometimes get 1, so it's a 0.3% loss of road tab.
The recent FTA with the UAE led to a 64% jump in leather exports to the West Asian country in November. While the government wants the leather industry to explore newer territories, the industry wants social security, interest subvention, lower duty on raw material and a PLI scheme from the upcoming union budget. In Agra with video journalist Rajendra, this is Abhimanyu Sharma for CNBC-TV18.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Business 360. But before we go, Indian film RRR won big at the Golden Globe Awards. Natu Natu, the hit song from the movie composed by M.M. Keeravani, has won the award in Best Original Song category. The other nominees in the category included the likes of Rihanna, Taylor Swift and Lady Gaga. The movie, however, lost out to Argentina 1985 in the non-English language film category. Thanks for watching. News and updates continue on the other side.